Alright, welcome to the second video of this Ikigai series, the Japanese code, the Japanese secret decoded. And today we're going to start with the strategy 2. We left off with strategy 1 at the end, we completed that, and now we're left off with strategy 2 and further so on in the chapter 4, which basically talks about flow control of Ikigai. Now, there are certain aspects that we will touch while discussing this flow control, and let me tell you one thing: the past 3 days, my life, I've tried to change it for the better by applying these simple rules of Ikigai or finding my own Ikigai, rather than applying rules given in the book. I try to flow free, just like how Bruce Lee said, be like water, my friend. And I understood that there are certain changes that I've able to get throughout this journey. Now let's go back to strategy 2. Now basically, it starts off with the sentence: video games played in moderation, board games and sports are great ways to achieve flow, because the objective tends to be very clear: beat your rival or your own record while following a set of explicitly defined rules. Now this one, the second strategy, which is basically have a clear concrete objective, talks about what we should be doing to achieve our Ikigai. And also, a fundamental aspect of Ikigai has to be forming or following a routine. And usually we tend to follow a routine when we have a clear objective in mind. For example, if my routine is going to be every day waking up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., then I immediately wake up. But why am I doing that routine? Because the objective is to wake up earlier so that I can get a breath of fresh air and I can start my day productively. So there is a clear and concrete objective that we need to inculcate within our lives. Now, the next important point is that in this modern world where we are distracted completely, there is a need for a specific objective. Now, there is one example cited within the book which talks about the Boston Consulting Group. When asked about their bosses, the number one complaint of the employees at multinational corporations is that they don't communicate to the team's missions clearly. So this suggests that this problem exists not just within ourselves but also in MNCs, in multinational conglomerates, in big businesses, big companies, big factories, where the often lacks a certain specific objective or a goal. Now, this is also one of the reasons or one of the main reasons why 90% of new businesses they start to fail. This is because they don't have a clear and concise objective. Although some might do extensive planning, but there is no clear concise objective, as in, okay, if I'm starting with this financial quarter, my goal is to achieve $100,000 worth of profit. That is a clear, concise goal. But how do you approach that goal? That is where most businesses fail. So as I said, that a clear, concise, objective goal, the lack of it leads to the failure of a business, right? In the same way, okay, even if we assume that, say, a business has a clear and concise objective goal, the way they proceed through it, that makes it much more difficult for them to strive, because most of them get it wrong at their first try. Now, having a clear and concrete objective, okay, fine, I've understood this point, but how to go about it? There is a beautiful explanation given within the book which talks about compasses over maps. Now, compass is what? Compass is a simple mechanical device that uses bar magnets to help us find the direction of north, east, south and west, right? These are the four directions, and based on magnets and based on the magnetic effects of our earth, it is able to help us to get a sense of direction. But a compass can never tell you the exact specific planned routes. A compass is not a GPS. But at the same time, why is there an emphasis on compass over maps? Now, map ideally on paper should sound like the most perfect device or the most perfect tool that is needed for you to achieve your goal, right? In an ideal world, in a perfect utopian world, like say going from point A to then you're going to point B. So there's this cut, you take that right, you take that left, and then you go proceed straight, and then you turn right. So it is a very complicated one, but it sounds much more efficient. But in reality, since we don't live in an ideal world, since we are not robots, since we are humans, and we tend to make mistakes and we tend to make emotional decisions, there are certain things which a map cannot achieve. So this is what it says. So in the book Whiplash: How to Survive Our Faster Future, there is Joy Ito along with Jeff Howe They talk about how, in an increasingly unpredictable world moving ever more quickly, a detailed map may lead you to deep into the woods at an unnecessarily high cost. A good compass, though, will always take you where you need to go. So, this is what, as I explained, the compass over maps topic talks about how it is important to have a sense of direction rather than going through this meticulous high amount of detail concise planning, because in an ideal world that might the second option, the map option, might seem much more efficient, but in reality it does not work. So whenever you're setting out towards making any form of progress towards your objective, have an idea. I'm not saying that you should wake up and you should be in this very dizzy state that you don't understand what you're going to do today, or you're in this very drug induced state where you're not where you're waking up and saying, yeah, I'll do something or something like the other. That does not work. What you need to do is you need to have a sense of direction. Okay, today I wake up at 4 a.m. and I'm going to be studying for 3 hours, and probably it's going to be between physics or chemistry, or it's going to be between biology, or it's going to be between history or geography. So you choose any two subjects and you take a decision based on that time, but you need to just have very a clear outline within your mind which talks about the sense of direction. It is not like you place your compass and then you let it swirl, I'll go in this direction. No, it does not happen like that. What you need to do is you need to just have an ideal outline of which direction I'm going to go in. That will help you a lot. So that is what compass over maps talks about, and you can definitely implement this or inculcate this habit within your life to see any form of improvement. Now, in business, the creative professions and education alike, it is important to reflect on what we hope to achieve before starting to work, study, or make something. So this is what as I talked about before, it is important to have a sense of direction rather than a detailed pre-planned route, because the latter almost never works. Now, having a clear objective is important in achieving a flow, but we also need to know how to leave it behind when we get down to business. Now, this is something which is very personal. Now, I'll share you an anecdote. When I was in 8th grade, I was preparing for this one exam. Now, you can say it to be a kind of a competitive exam where around 10,000 students from my state were writing that exam to get admission into one of the elite prep schools of the city. Now, I had a clear objective. Okay, I'm going to work 7-8 hours a day, which was a bit much for me in 8th grade, and I think it would be a bit more for any normal 8th grader. So I used to do that, right? So I used to work for 6-7 hours a day. No, I had this in my mind that I will work for 6, 7, or 8 hours a day. I'll solve this book, I'll practice my questions from this website, I'll thoroughly revise through this material. And I had a very very pre-planned idea, or a route map, right? I had a map at that time. And although this was good and this is appreciable, I had this one bad habit of thinking what would happen after I clear that specific exam. What would happen if I join the new elite prep school, right? So I used to create these fake scenarios in my mind, not fake, hypothetical scenarios in my mind, where I felt like, okay, after I go to this school, I'll make this type of friends. After I go to the school, I'll achieve this rank or something like that. And that will definitely, as that definitely did impact me at that time. Number one, that is a true story. Number two, that will definitely impact you if you think about it, right? So this is because although it validates with the law of attraction, just thinking about it does not cause for you to make any real progress to it. Because at that time, talking about my example, I was only thinking about what would happen if I go there. I was never thinking about what will I do if I don't go there. I was only thinking about the best case scenario, and I never thought about the worst case scenario. And after 6 months of really hard work, of real hard work, and after 6 months of dedicating my life at that point, no social life, no friends. I mean, I don't expect an 8th grader to have a social life, but I never got any birthday wishes. I never got any texts from friends. But I also avoided people. After that, I was not able to, clear the cutoff for that, for admission into that school. And I felt very depressed. But I learned something from that. And that was that you should never, you, imagine hypothetical situations of what will I do if I go there. No, But rather, what I practice is now is I think about the worst case scenario, which is also not the best way, but that is my way of approach. So that is what it says. When Olympic athletes, there is an example given within the book which I'll be explaining now. When Olympic athletes compete for a gold medal, they can't stop thinking about how pretty the medal is. So if you just keep on thinking about how pretty your life is going to be after you work hard, not while you're working hard, after you work hard, then it is not going to be successful, because you are consistently in that state of mind where you're thinking that okay, I will be doing this after working 6 7 8 hours a day. I will be buying this cloth, I'll be wearing dress from this brand, I'll be buying an Adidas or Nike or Puma sneaker after I work hard. It always comes after I work hard. It's never while I'm working hard. Even if you're thinking, say, if you're taking a few seconds off your grind and thinking about, okay, maybe one reason why am I studying? Because I am studying because so that tomorrow I can have a good life. That is a good aspect because you're working hard. You're putting in the work. But without putting in the work, when you're thinking and when you're publicizing your efforts, it's not going to be not publicizing your efforts, publicizing your hypothetical efforts. It's not going to be the most ideal way or a real way towards approaching any objective or any goal. Now, there is also another example of a writer's block given here, which is similar to the previous example of an Olympic gold athlete. Now, this is what they're saying. So, the summary of strategy 2, if I have to describe it, it is to have a clear, concise, and concrete objective, is to have a sense of direction about how you are going to approach that objective, not a detailed or rate of mind where you're thinking that okay, I will be doing this after working 6 7 8 hours a day. I will be buying this cloth, I'll be wearing dress from this brand, I'll be buying an Adidas or Nike or Puma sneaker after I work hard. It always comes after I work hard. It's never while I'm working hard. Even if you're thinking, say, if you're taking a few seconds off your grind and thinking about, okay, maybe one reason why am I studying? Because I am studying because so that tomorrow I can have a good life. That is a good aspect because you're working hard. You're putting in the work. But without putting in the work, when you're thinking and when you're publicizing your efforts, it's not going to be not publicizing your efforts, publicizing your hypothetical efforts. It's not going to be the most ideal way or a real way towards approaching any objective or any goal. Now, there is also another example of a writer's block given here, which is similar to the previous example of an Olympic gold athlete. Now, this is what they're saying. So, the summary of strategy 2, if I have to describe it, it is to have a clear, concise, and concrete objective, is to have a sense of direction about how you are going to approach that objective, not a detailed or highly planned, without taking any scenarios or other cases into factor. And that map, right, that is not going to be much more efficient than the compass which gives you a sense of direction you have. That is your second point. And the third point is going to be, you have to put in the work, you have to grind, you have to work very very hard, and you have to think about what will happen. The hypothetical situations always come after you're working hard, right? So that is something that you need to understand. This is all is what is given in strategy 2. Now, strategy 3 has to be the most important aspect while you're talking about the current scenario. It talks about concentrating on a single task. Now, with rapid technological growth, with growth in economies, with growth in the social standard of living, with growth in our own personal standard of living, we have more than ever access now. We have now access to technological devices. We have access to the internet. We have access to all sorts of entertainment and learning material. But often our mind, because there is dopamine flowing within us when we do those entertainment activities, often we choose the latter path, which is going towards the entertainment side, right? So what do? We take our phones while we're making notes, or while we're studying, we listen to music, we listen to rap songs, or we listen to heavy metal songs while taking notes or while studying. Or let us say, while you're cooking, you probably watch a Netflix series or something like that, or you're probably watching a documentary. Or while trying to sleep, you say, okay, I'm going to listen to a music playlist, and I listen to that and then I'll sleep. So these are certain examples of current life multitasking that we are doing. Now, this My friend, I'm sorry to say, and this is something that I've been personally suffering from for a lot of time right now, and I've decided to take a step to change that, and which I'm actually actively doing that. Which this problem, this entire aspect of multitasking, is something that we need to talk about with specific emphasis on this generation. So all these activities that I had mentioned earlier, listening to music and studying, listening to podcasts and studying, or watching a web series while you're cooking or you're doing other housework, that reduces the efficiency of the work that you're doing. You might think that, okay, multitasking is going to make me much more efficient because I'm doing two or three activities simultaneously, so it is going to reduce the total time taken for me to do those three activities, which I can find extra time and then I'll use it for productive work. But that never ever happens. This is not just my plain old way of saying or something like that. This is not what my parents or what my teachers have said to me, that I'm conveying it to you. This is something that research and science has proven. Now, there was one specific study done by one of the Stanford professors. The Stanford professor's name was Ivar Nas, if I'm not really wrong. Okay, I just tell you the study, right? So, yes, I think I've found it. Right. So Ivar Nas was a Stanford professor who conducted this specific activity or this specific research on a group of students to analyze the effects of multitasking in our brain. Now, the whole concept of multitasking has been in effect, as I said earlier, because of technological improvements, because we have so much access to so many different gadgets that we think that, okay, I'm going to do a lot of things at the same time. Now, Ivar Nas conducted a study where he took two sets of students, right? The one set of students were people who were accustomed to multitasking. They were doing different activities at the same time. And then the second set of students were people who were not really, multitasking. Rather, they were focusing on one single task, or they were concentrating on one single task at a particular time. So what he did was, there was a projector placed and he displayed a bunch of red and blue arrows, right? So there was a projector placed, there was one set of students, and then in another room there was another set of students. So there were blue and red arrows mixed, jumbled, projected onto the screen. Now he asked these students, the two sets of students, to calculate or to count the number of blue arrows, or sorry, the number of red arrows within the mixture, right? So initially there was around 5 red arrows and 10 blue arrows, so they were easily able to count the blue arrows from the red arrows. But soon what happened was, soon, soon the number of blue arrows increased, right? So since the number of blue arrows increased, people were, now see, if the red arrows are lesser in number and the blue arrows are going to be much more in number, people were able to easily count the number of blue arrows. So that was the objective. Then what he did was, the objective was to, if I'm not wrong, then the objective was to count the number of red arrows. Now what happened was, there were, see, if you're trying to count 20 blue arrows in a mixture of 20 blue arrows and 5 red arrows, it is going to be easy. But if I reverse the task and I ask you to count 5 red arrows from a mixture of 25 blue arrows and 5 red arrows, it's going to be progressively difficult. So what Ivar did was, they completed the first set of tasks easily and both the groups were able to perform in the exact same way. The second task was basically asking them to count the number of red arrows as the blue arrows were increased, and these red arrows were randomly displaced from this position to that position. So the people who were multitasking found it difficult to calculate or to count the number of red arrows as the blue arrows started increasing, because they weren't able to dive or to focus or concentrate their attention into one specific thing. So it was difficult for them because they got distracted by the blue arrows. The main aim in the second task was to count the number of red arrows as the number of blue arrows were increasing. So the set A people who were multitasking found it difficult to concentrate on one task, because their brain and their life and their body was accustomed to doing multiple tasks at the same time with less efficiency. While the set B of people or students who were not accustomed to multitasking, and rather they were more focused, they were able to perfectly count the number of red arrows even after there was a flux or there was a change in the number of blue arrows. So this proves that our brain is going to be maximum efficient, is going to show maximum efficiency when we are concentrating or focusing on one specific thing. So this is what the third strategy talks about, that is, it is to increase your concentration, or is to increase your efficiency by concentrating on one specific concrete task. Now, Ashwath, you're talking about these, right? So what is going to be your way of approach towards concentration? Now, if you have read Stoicism, which is, by the way, the inspiration of the name of this channel, Shiloh Aurelius, although Ashwath is my name, I like to go by this internet persona of Shiloh Aurelius within this specific channel. Now, Stoicism talks about how one good aspect, I wouldn't call it the most major aspect, one important aspect of Stoicism is going to be concentrating on one thing, and that is also seen in Ikigai. Now, there are certain references from Stoicism which talks about how you have to concentrate in one specific task, and that is going to happen when your surroundings are distraction free. Let us say you're going to sit at your table and you are going to study, say, geopolitics of Eastern Europe. Now, you have read, open your notes or your book, or you have your entire content on your laptop or your computer. Now, it is favorable that you don't look at other topics or research on other topics or articles while you're trying to study about geopolitics of Eastern Europe. You don't go and talk about South American ecology or ecosystems while you're studying about geopolitics of Eastern Europe, right? So what Stoicism or even Ikigai says is to have a distraction free environment. Now, Ikigai is more relevant because this was written in the past few years, and it talks about the importance of having a distraction free and a clear a distraction free environment to get to the point of achieving that clear, concise, and controlled objective, right? The second important point with reference to our time is to not look at any kind of screens or any kind of digital devices for the first hour that you're woken up, and the last hour before you go to sleep. Say you're waking up at 5 o'clock. Make it a point, make it a rule that you don't look at any devices until it's 6 a.m. or until it's 7 a.m. It is better if you don't look at any devices at all, but say you have got some commitments, some work commitments or some college commitments. So it is important that you understand to not look at any devices for the first 1 hour after you've woken up, and the last 1 hour before you go to sleep. Now, turn off your phone or turn off your laptop or turn off your computer before you're achieving flow, because this phone, your distractions, your other form of mind wandering always happens when you have access to a technological device, and especially when it is near you. So, I mean, you can say that, okay, I'm using my phone for my stopwatch. It does not really work, because you will be tempted to open up Instagram or to open up YouTube and watch shorts endlessly for hours, because that gives you instant gratification. Now, what do? Let us say you want a timer. There is an also important point that is spoken in Ikigai. If you want to use a timer, you can probably use a Pomodoro clock, or even get accustomed to a Pomodoro time frame method, which is basically 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of break, or 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes of break. So just try to make sure you're in a distraction free environment. You don't use any digital devices during the set so time periods, and while you're studying, switch off your mobiles or switch off your phones and keep them aside, and then prepared towards grinding out for the next 3 or 4 hours. Now, say, fine, I've done all of this, but I'm still getting distracted. My mind is wandering off in between of the hard work. That is going to be completely normal, because at the end of the day, we are no Herculeans, or we are not the most concentrated people with the most concentrated minds in the world, right? That takes a lot of years of practice. Rome wasn't built in one day. So if you're feeling like that, it is important that you go outside, take a walk for a couple of minutes, or say 5 minutes, and then come back to your room and then start studying, or do your work after you come back from your walking or talking to your family members for some time. That would be ideal if you are feeling that, okay, my mind is wandering during the time of doing your hard work. Now, there's another important thing. I've spoken about clear, concise, objective, and goals, but how do I define these goals? Should I take a huge set of goals and I try to finish it in one day, or do I define it by saying, okay, I've taken a pool and this pool has group A objective, group B objective, and group C objective. So I'm going to finish group A in one day, group B in the second day, and group C in the third day. Now, which one would you choose? Would you choose a very vague idea of, I don't know what I'm going to be doing, but I know what I'm going to be doing? Or are you going to see not extensively planned, but you know where you're going? It's not, again, I would be contradicting my own points if I say that you need to have an extensive plan. No, you don't need to have an extensive plan. All you need is to know a sense of direction. And while choosing your objective, it is important, or it is required, or it is necessary to have this sense of direction. And this sense of direction is basically dividing your work into small parts, so that you can distribute it accordingly to your preferences or to your time constraints. So that is the strategy theory that this chapter 4 of Ikigai talks about. It has been 25 minutes, and I will be uploading the further videos of this flow, right, this steady state, achieving this flow chapter 4 over the next couple of days, because I have my exams coming. So yeah, so that is it for today's video. I hope you liked it, and subscribe for more learning. This is Shiloh signing off. Thank you.